Underestimated and even doubted by a father. That's how you feel. I'm kidding, guys. Oh yeah, this is Hoshina, a 3rd Division vice captain who has the ability to fight in close quarters with a sword. Despite having quite great sword skills, in the past he was always ignored and underestimated by his father. Even when his father knew Hoshina was training hard to reach his goal of joining the defense forces, his father always discouraged him. He considers Hoshina's swordsmanship to be a thing of the past. That era is over, because in the current era, according to his father, relying solely on swordsmanship is useless because it will be inferior to modern weapons. But despite being underestimated, Hoshina still believed in himself, because after all, combat power release for the firing weapon was quite low, and it would not be simple enough for that era. But his father still discouraged Hoshina and even advised his to give up, because as you seem to know, these days the kaiju that appear have giant bodies. You will die in vain if you only rely on your sword, because after all, this is all for your own good. Forget all that and just apply your sword techniques as an instructor. But as a man who has decided what his destiny is, Hoshina will not give up so easily, even though his father always underestimates his abilities. Hoshina will prove that his sword skills are still quite effective in this era. Then the scene showed a recording of the 3rd Division's mushroom-headed kaiju attack operation. Hoshina, who saw the recording, was quite proud that his men's first mission went well. Then, when Hoshina came out of a room, several reporters had come and approached Hoshina for an interview. They came to cover the new soldiers who joined the 3rd Division this year. Hoshina responded well to the reporters, and they were all very happy because it was very cooperative. Then the reporter intended to ask Hoshina some questions, but because he felt that everyone already knew Hoshina, he seemed confused about it. But it turned out that the reporter wanted to ask something else, and it was about the new soldiers. In addition, the reporter said that some of the soldiers this year really looked competent, and he mentioned that there was a soldier who impressed him, namely Kikori Shinomiya. And Hoshina stated that this exam was indeed tougher than any held so far. And fortunately, this year we got some talented people, and you can see that this year. But because he felt that what Hoshina mentioned seemed odd, the reporter went back to confirm about Kafka. Because according to the reporter, when compared to some other soldiers, Kafka seemed to tend to be inferior to others. Especially in terms of physical strength, which compared to others, Kafka was fairly low. And if there was someone like that, then why was he accepted? But getting that question from the reporter about Kafka, Hoshina tries to find a defense for Kafka and says that it's part of the process, because not only do they accept people based on their combat power, but there are some criteria that the superiors want from how it is the reason Kafka can still be accepted. But the point is that the reason why people like Kafka are accepted is none other than as an entertaining character. Hearing Hoshina's statement made the reporter confused about what Hoshina meant. But Hoshina reiterated that Kafka's presence can be said to provide a new atmosphere. Even though Kafka has a power release of 0, he still has a high spirit to dedicate all his abilities to being part of the defense forces, even though he actually doesn't understand and know what to do when he's in the active kaiju area. And the point is that Hoshina doesn't hate stupid people like him. But again, the reporter didn't seem to get an answer that satisfied him. And then Hoshina seemed to feel that there was something in common with Kafka, a strong spirit. Even though the people around him told him to give up, he was the one who was stupid enough to keep fighting and doing it. It can be said that this is the same as when Hoshina was underestimated by his father. And then after that, Hoshina stated that it was time to start the private training session. The new soldiers will also come, and if you want to see it, you can come if you want. Then the scene moves to a training room. We see a lot of soldiers with protection practicing swords one-on-one. Hoshina is so proud to see that this year's soldiers are so very proactive. Not only Hoshina, the reporters who came to see the soldiers training were amazed to see their actions practicing. And it turns out some of them are also women. But while Hoshina was watching the soldiers train, suddenly a soldier approached him and asked to be trained directly. He wanted to compete against Hoshina to see how much he had trained, and Hoshina had better do what the soldier wanted. The soldier showed all his skills during his training in front of Hoshina, but in the end, it was still not enough to defeat him. Hoshina easily ended the fight by hitting the soldier on the head, but because he felt that it was not enough, the soldier then thanked him and was determined to train even harder. But with that defeat, Hoshina gave his soldier credit for doing well in training. Especially with his kendo skills, Hoshina felt that this soldier was the best in his class. Hoshina was really proud because this year's soldiers were really very talented. But at the same time, Hoshina was surprised to see one of the soldiers who was so excited to be fighting against other soldiers. They are Kafka and Iharu. In the fight against Iharu, Kafka was unable to match his fighting skills. Iharu used an Iharu blade technique. Iharu mocked Kafka and called him an old man. But because he felt that Iharu was too eager to fight him, Kafka asked him to relax a little. But Iharu said that what I just did was already relaxing, believe it or not. I gave in, but because you don't have any abilities, you feel difficult. Kafka said that until now, he had never practiced kendo. In addition, Kafka was surprised that all the soldiers had been training so far, including Reno. Kafka realized that everyone who signed up for the defense forces seemed to have received martial arts training. Then Reno asked Kafka another question. If Kafka didn't have kendo skills, would you choose judo? But apparently not. Kafka didn't have either. And it turned out that Reno's statement confused Kafka because according to Reno, in junior high school, it should have been mandatory to choose judo or kendo. But apparently it was not at all for Kafka. And in fact, because of the age comparison between Kafka and Reno, the curriculum when Reno and Kafka were in school was different. When Reno was in junior high school, martial arts was a compulsory subject. And because of that, almost all the rookies this year already had martial arts skills, except for Kafka. And that's what Hoshina explained to them. The difference in generations made Kafka have no martial arts skills. That means from now on, Kafka must train even harder. Kafka bowed his head before Hoshina and asked him to teach him martial arts techniques. And besides that, Kafka wants to try to compete against Hoshina. Reno seems to want to also train like Kafka. But because Iharu feels that Reno wants to surpass him, Iharu does not want to lose and wants the same thing as them. Hoshina is so happy to see them so excited, and Hoshina is ready if that's what they want. I will face you all, so wait in line. And a few minutes later, Hoshina defeated them all with ease. Besides that, Hoshina said their efforts were good, but they should improve their basic training. The reporter was so amazed by Hoshina's skills that none of the soldiers could match him. Then the reporter confirmed to Hoshina about his status in that place, and Hoshina stated that he was transferred to this place because Captain Ashiro recruited him. But when the reporter wanted to ask something else, suddenly Kikoru approached Hoshina and asked to practice fighting. Then Kikoru, in a fighting costume, prepared to start training for a match with Hoshina. But there was one thing that made Hoshina interested in Kikoru's abilities. She knew how to use firearms and use a sword, which was great according to Hoshina. But Hoshina felt that it was not so different from him. Then we get a scene where Hoshina has just arrived at a tall building, and it all starts when he still hasn't entered the Tachikawa headquarters. His arrival is for a meeting about a friendly kendo match against 3 units that will be held next month. And it's been a while since Hoshina first came to Tokyo. There Hoshina met with a person he called Sensei. He stated that lately his body was not as agile as it used to be, and that reason made me want to resign as an instructor. And because of that, he also offered the position to Hoshina to replace him. But Hoshina seemed to want to consider it. Getting the offer made Hoshina think, because it seemed like he had gotten the offer many times. Everyone had acknowledged Hoshina's skill with a sword. But if practiced, it was not suitable, and that was as an evaluation of the defense forces, according to him. But getting an offer like that sometimes made Hoshina recall memories in the past about his father, because it was always a shadow if Hoshina was better off as an instructor, and basically they told Hoshina to retreat on the front lines. Hoshina, who continued to walk while staring out, still continued to imagine what he should do. I am stubborn. I am not afraid to admit it. That's what was in Hoshina's mind. However, at the same time, a soldier suddenly called out to him and said that there was a message for him from Captain Ashiro. Hoshina was confused and unsure why Captain Ashiro asked Hoshina to meet in his chambers. Besides, is the captain looking for me? Then Hoshina went into Captain Ashiro's room, and at that moment, Mina said something to Hoshina. That Mina had seen Hoshina at the joint training, but because he felt that Hoshina's sword technique was extraordinary, it made Mina admire. Hearing Mina's statement about Hoshina being known as a master swordsman made Hoshina proud that someone recognized him. But on the contrary, it turned out that the sentence of praise had an inverse opinion according to Hoshina. He felt that behind the praise was a sentence for continuation that made him just give up. But in fact, this was different. Mina really recognized Hoshina's abilities and asked Hoshina to join Mina's army. Hoshina was surprised to get that offer. According to Mina, that we can't ignore the possibility of a small-sized, powerful threat in the future. And also, I really know what the origin of sword weapons like you is. Besides that, I even keep myself from holding kitchen knives, if it's possible. Mina's question about kitchen knives made Hoshina want to hold back a laugh, because kitchen knives are a different matter. Then, in essence, when Mina had to shoot the target, Mina asked Hoshina to make a path to launch the shot. Hoshina was really surprised to hear that statement. According to him, until now, no one has ever said that to him, including his own father. But Hoshina seemed to be very hesitant about it, whether to accept joining Mina or not. He still felt that it was just sweet words. But when Hoshina wanted to answer Mina's question, suddenly a soldier entered the room and reported something to Mina. In Ohm City, there were reports that there was an appearance of Kaiju. Besides that, the Kaiju entered in a small class, but some Yoju have also been seen. More than dozens of casualties have been reported from the emergency point. The situation suddenly turned tense, and Mina ordered all the soldiers to gather, including those on vacation. While Mina was contacting the others on the phone, Hoshina offered to go to the location where the Kaiju appeared. But it turned out that Hoshina's statement surprised the soldier. He said that Hoshina came here for other matters. After all, Hoshina was a member of another unit, which probably meant that Hoshina was not a soldier ready for battle. However, Hoshina stated that he had brought uniforms and weapons. So at least with that, I can eradicate the Yoju. And hearing Hoshina's statement, Mina, as the captain of Unit 3, happily asked Hoshina for help with this matter. But the soldiers still doubted Mina's decision to let Hoshina help, because this included dangerous operations based on the level of resistance of the Kaiju that appeared. But Mina explained that Hoshina is an expert in close combat. Hoshina should be able to help a lot. Hoshina confidently stated that when it comes to exterminating small Kaiju, no one can match him. Hoshina's struggle begins. Now he is with the other soldiers in the car heading to the location. But because he sees Hoshina so relaxed with a book in hand, a soldier captain looks so annoyed with his attitude that is too relaxed. Hoshina states that this is just his routine preparation, but if it bothers him, he will keep it. Hoshina thought that the soldier captain seemed to want to kick him out, but he explained that regarding this matter, Hoshina should do well. By the way, I forgot to mention, guys, he is named Ebina, a platoon leader. So, according to Chairman Ebina, he seems to feel familiar with the name Hoshina. According to Chairman Ebina, he's from out Kaiju Slayer, and your instructors are always praising his priestly abilities. Hoshina heard that statement was honored by what was said, but Chairman Ebina stated that in the attack period, he should have realized that times have changed. But because of that, Chairman Ebina still appreciates Hoshina's help, but he plans to put Hoshina in the backside support section. But Hoshina's answer is so wise, he doesn't intend to interfere and just wants to do the best with what he can. But in Hoshina's mind, he wanted to show and prove his existence on the battlefield by cutting down the Kaiju. Then, not long after that, they had arrived at a place. Chairman Ebina stated that our targets were lizard-type Honju and some Yoju, and the Yoju appeared from the mountainous area and their numbers are currently unknown. But there are also reports that they are ferocious, so Chairman Ebina advised the others to be careful. In addition, our task is to stop the Yoju that the previous platoon failed to kill in Zone 5. Then, after getting instructions from Chairman Ebina, Hoshina and the others prepared to carry out the operation. Hoshina was so insecure when he saw that other troops had prepared with great weapons, while he was only with a sword. Then, from the monitor room, ordered them to immediately go to Zone L, and the appearance of the Yoju was confirmed in the south. Quickly, Chairman Ebina and several other soldiers ran to get to the location so that the Kaiju would not wander too far. And when they were on the railroad tracks, they met the lizard-type Kaiju. With so much agility and fast movement, the lizards ran to attack the defense forces. Chief Ebina instructed them to target the head. Shots continued to be fired until some of the lizard Kaiju were destroyed. But it didn't stop there. Their numbers were increasing and kept coming. But it turned out that while the lizard Kaiju were attacking, Suddenly, one of them escaped and went away from that place. But Chairman Ebina saw that someone was running away. He immediately reported that they failed to kill everyone. But unexpectedly, Hoshina intended to chase the monster. Hoshina, with fast and agile movements, jumped off the bridge and ran after it. And finally, Hoshina caught up with the monster and prepared to kill it. But the lizard gave a loud roar in front of Hoshina. But the cool thing is that Hoshina immediately went forward and attacked the lizard with one attack until Hoshina managed to cut the neck of the lizard. Then Hoshina reported to Chairman Ebina that he managed to annihilate one of those who managed to escape. Chairman Ebina stated that it was good and instructed Hoshina to return to the squad immediately. Proudly holding the sword in his hand, Hoshina believed that his power was still relevant. But as Hoshina walked towards the squad, he heard a shot. And sure enough, a lizard-type Hanju of gigantic size appeared in front of him. It was the Hanju that Captain Mina was about to face. Hoshina, who felt that it was close to his location, immediately moved towards it. Hoshina felt that it was bigger than before. And on the way, suddenly Hoshina was confronted by a Yoju that was bigger than before. Hoshina confidently and smilingly prepared to face it. But unexpectedly, the giant Yoju did not make a physical attack, but released an acidic liquid from its mouth. But because the liquid was so acidic, the surrounding environment was destroyed. Not only that, the uniform used by Hoshina was also seen melting. From a distance, Chairman Ebina informed the others that this adult kaiju has perfect ledger organs and the ability to secrete saliva, which is very corrosive. It seems that the kaiju keep their saliva in their neck and melt whatever they eat before digesting. In addition, their attack range ranges from 20 to 40 meters. While the kaiju was releasing acid again, Hoshina tried to turn around and look for a point to attack it from behind. And sure enough, while the kaiju was off guard, Hoshina prepared from behind the kaiju and intended to slash its neck. But unfortunately, Hoshina was too late. The kaiju quickly realized Hoshina's arrival. But Hoshina had another planned technique. He used the first technique when he was within its range. And sure enough, Hoshina managed to give up the kaiju right at its neck. But because the kaiju's body parts were too thick, Hoshina failed to kill it in just one attack. And at the same time, Chairman Ebina instructed the other soldiers to shoot the kaiju. Shot after shot continued to be fired until finally the monster was successfully overthrown. Then Chairman Ebina instructed Hoshina to check whether there were civilians or others who were still there or not. Because according to Chairman Ebina, he received information if there were children who were separated from their parents and might be somewhere in this area. But when Hoshina wanted to convince Chairman Ebina that he was still capable of fighting, Chairman Ebina then cut him off and said that he had seen Hoshina's ability and you did well, but you are not suited to deal with this type of kaiju. We need the right person for this kind of work. And not only that, if you use freezing bullets to slow down their movement and shoot continuously, it is more effective than just a sword. Chairman Ebina instructed Hoshina that if he finds a Yoju like this again, don't forget to report back. Hoshina was silent and imagined his father's words. All this time I've lived by the sword. If you take the sword away from me, what's left of me? And in the end, they managed to destroy several monsters, and it was very fortuitous because their ice bullet ammunition had also run out. Very unexpectedly, their number was very large. Seeing the success of the 3rd Division, Hoshina stated that it was much better because Captain Ashiro was irreplaceable. But, unexpectedly, Chairman Ebina gave an expression like fear. And not only Chairman Ebina, the others were also surprised to hear Hoshina's statement. Hoshina innocently asked them if there was some kind of grudge about Captain Mina. Then, with a tense expression, Chairman Ebina explained that Captain Mina couldn't cook at all. Chairman Ebina was so surprised when Hoshina thought it wasn't that important, but according to Chairman Ebina, it was very important. Then Chief Ebina recounted when they were training until they had to stay overnight on the mountain. The other soldiers made curry, but the squad with Mina got the worst of it. Captain Mina put all the vegetables whole into the pot without cutting them first. Hoshina innocently asked, "Is there anyone who would do such a thing?" Chairman Ebina shouted that the person was Captain Mina as an example, and it was done not out of carelessness but because Captain Mina could not hold a knife. Chairman Ebina stated that if Captain Mina held a knife, it would be a big disaster. At that time, the chairman of Ebina stated to Captain Mina, If he couldn't use a knife, they would be grateful if Mina would use it to peel vegetables. But when the chairman of Ibina said that, Mina, with a firm face, said that she couldn't use a weapon with a sword. Hoshina was so confused to hear that statement because peeling is not part of a sword weapon, but Chairman Ibina and the others confirmed that it was like that. Hoshina immediately fell silent and thought that it seemed like Captain Mina was liked by everyone. And after saying that, Chairman Ibina and the others laughed. Then, after the area was completely cleared, Chairman Ibina instructed to immediately return to the temporary headquarters because there seemed to be no more Yoju left. And then Hoshina accidentally saw a boy standing in front of the house while hugging a puppy. Chairman Ibina confirmed that the boy was the one the bunker was looking for, and judging from the characteristics and so on, it was a match. It was confirmed that the boy was chasing his frightened dog, but luckily he didn't seem to be hurt. But while Hoshina was trying to calm the boy down, suddenly the puppy barked loudly. And suddenly Chairman Ibina got the information that they should be alert in neutral zone L. And unexpectedly a Yoju appeared from behind the little boy. The little boy immediately ran with his dog, but the Yoju quickly ate and swallowed the little boy. Hoshina was really surprised to see it and intended to slash the Yoju. But when Hoshina approached, the Yoju immediately sprayed acidic liquid from its mouth, and after that, the Yoju ran away from that place. They would not let the Yoju run away and immediately shot it, but because of the fast movement, the Yoju managed to escape from them. It is known that in neutralization zone L, they have confirmed that there is another appearance of the Yoju and are advised to stay alert. Hoshina again offered to settle this, but Chairman Ibina restrained him. But this time Hoshina was so angry and asked him not to prevent it. Then Chairman Ibina explained that right now they had run out of ice bullets, and because of that the situation would not be favorable for us to fight him. So we should wait for another platoon to come. But when Chairman Ibina said that, Hoshina got angry and decided to go after him immediately. But again, Chairman Ibina didn't allow Hoshina to do that. But being very upset, Hoshina asked, "Why, sir?" And Chairman Ibina's answer was very simple: "You can't beat him." Hoshina suddenly fell silent hearing that and turned his face away. According to Chairman Ibina, the kaiju is quite large for the level of Yoju. It would be too heavy anyway if it were to be faced with the current conditions. Anyway, I wouldn't send one of my warriors to an unwinnable fight. Then Hoshina stated that with the little boy being eaten by the Yoju, that means you don't care if he dies. But Chairman Ibina stated that he still cares, but there are other factors that are the reason why I can't send you there. Hoshina started to sober up and fell silent. He didn't feel incredulous if a civilian was attacked in front of his eyes. It didn't make him feel frustrated. But behind it all, he calmly read the situation and determined which things could be helped and which could not be helped. Hoshina realized maybe that was the reason why he was so respected by his men. Then Hoshina calmly stated that he understood the order, but one thing I ask is that you still allow me. And hearing that question made Chairman Ibina upset. But unexpectedly, a voice was heard calling Hoshina's name, and it came from Captain Mina. From that voice, Captain Mina and other soldiers were facing the Yoju. The situation was in danger. Captain Mina asked Hoshina if he was able to defeat the kaiju. But with a serious face and full of confidence, Hoshina was confident that he could save the child. Hoshina apologized to Chairman Ibina and ignored him in order to save the child. Hoshina ran and moved quickly to chase after the kaiju, who managed to escape. When Hoshina was heading to the location, he got a memory of his past when he was a child. It was a memory of when little Hoshina wanted to be a strong soldier like his father. Hoshina was so happy at that time because when he said that, his father stroked his head. It is known that Hoshina's father was in the defense force and had defeated many kaiju with his extraordinary sword skills. And because of that, he rose to the level of platoon leader. But after he participated in a company operation, his father retired from active duty and turned into a sword instructor. At that time, Hoshina declared that he wanted to become a defense force to his father, hoping that his father would be happy to hear that and stroke his head. But what Hoshina got was different. His father called him into a room and said something serious. His father advised Hoshina to forget his dream of becoming a defense force. A fact that his father said that in this era, you will not be able to protect anyone or anything with just a sword. But from his father's words, Hoshina did not dare to ask the reason about it. But honestly, Hoshina was very curious about what happened in his last combat operation. Because if you look at his father's facial expression and his words, it seems to have explained everything. In addition, the defense forces in the current era have focused on firearms, explosive bullets, ice bullets, and electric bullets, because with that, you can use it with the right situation. And when compared to weapons in the current era, it is much more effective in combat than close combat, because in addition to being effective by using weapons, it can attack from a safe distance, and casualties in missions can decrease drastically. Hoshina continued his pursuit while thinking about what his father had said. The era of the sword had long since ended, but according to Hoshina, even so, this was all he had. In any situation and condition, Hoshina as a child spent his days practicing swinging a sword. He lived his life always thinking about the sword, because the sword was a technique that he had cultivated for a long time. Hoshina decided then that he had no choice but to draw his sword, and he was determined to finish off the kaiju right now. Hoshina then threw something at the kaiju to get its attention. And looking at the huge neck, Hoshina was sure that the boy was still there. With such quick movements, Hoshina dodged the acid spray spewed out by the kaiju. Hoshina's agile movements were so effective that the whole place seemed to be flooded with acid due to the kaiju. But Hoshina managed to dodge all the attacks safely. Hoshina assumed that the more it spewed the acid from its mouth, the longer it would take to melt the boy in its mouth. Hoshina realized that he couldn't slash at the kaiju like the previous fight, but if Hoshina attacked the core, then it was certainly possible that it would work. With all his ability, Hoshina jumped so high that he reached the kaiju's neck and quickly slashed at it. But unfortunately, it didn't manage to kill it because the kaiju broke off part of its body to avoid his attack. It seems like Hoshina is starting to realize that this yoju is like an unusual one, because judging from the movement to avoid, it means that this yoju has quite high intelligence. But when Hoshina was caught off guard, the yoju suddenly attacked Hoshina with its huge tail. The attack managed to hit Hoshina's body and knocked him quite far away. Instantly, the ability of his uniform reached its limit and made Hoshina bleed from his mouth and nose. Hoshina really felt that now he could not move as usual, and suddenly the yoju was now right in front of Hoshina. As if resigned to the situation, Hoshina really could not do anything, and in the end, the yoju swallowed Hoshina's body. But it turns out that there was a drone that recorded the incident when Hoshina was devoured by the giant yoju. Hoshina is now in danger. He is in the stomach of the giant yoju. In his last moments, Hoshina remembered the words of his father, who advised him to give up and forget about the defense forces. But apparently, Hoshina was still in a semi-conscious state and saw the body of the little boy who was previously swallowed by the giant yoju. Hoshina tried to grab his hand with all his might. And finally, he managed to grab the little boy's hand and use the last of his might to get out of the giant yoju's mouth with the fourth technique, Wild Slasher. Hoshina managed to get out of that mouth by slashing the yoju's neck, but not yet making it dead, because the core part had not been destroyed. But with such a close distance, Hoshina was sure that this last attack would not be able to make the yoju avoid it. It turns out that Hoshina has another technique, and that is his sixth technique, Eightfold Slasher. Hoshina was surprised after using that technique to make his sword melt. But with a brutal slash, Hoshina managed to make the giant yoju really die, even though he had to give up his sword to be damaged. Hoshina managed to save himself and the child safely. Hugging the child who looked limp, Hoshina recalled his words to Captain Mina stating that he could save the child. With the result that his sword was broken, Hoshina probably realized from the beginning that he would not be able to defeat it. But unexpectedly, it turned out that the giant yoju was still alive and intended to attack Hoshina. By surrendering while protecting the child, Hoshina felt relieved because in his last moment he had managed to protect and save the child. But a miracle came. When the yoju wanted to attack him, suddenly a shot managed to hit the head of the giant yoju until it was destroyed. And it turned out to be Mina. Hoshina was really surprised to see that, and Captain Mina thanked Hoshina for saving the child. And because of Hoshina's efforts, the captain was able to shoot the kaiju's core without hesitation. With an expression so limp and helpless, Hoshina stated that Captain Mina's timing was very precise and it was amazing. Then heard from a distance, the captain called Hoshina and asked if he was still alive. Hoshina was really amazed by division filled with people of character. And that's part of the story of the Hoshina arc in the Kaiju manga number 8 B-side. For the next episode, we will continue tomorrow. So thank you for those of you who have watched. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Nim. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye, guys.